Hello, everybody. It is Friday again, and that means it's time for Moohead Radio. I'm your host, a big and furry bovine. Joining me from merry old England is Bronk. How you doing, you antler head?
Yeah, I'm just a big old moose.
Well, and that's what they say about this show. And I'm not going to go any further than use the expression "sucks moose." And I don't
Sucks
know,
moose.
I don't know where in the hell that
moose.
came from exactly, but
I think Rocky. Yeah.
oh.
Ooh, hickory dickory dock.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what do they do? They save nuts
Yeah.
through the winter. Is that what they do? So I guess Rocky didn't come at all during the winter,
No,
but he nutted.
another poor old Bullwinkle.
Yeah, poor moose. How is everybody today? I'm going to start out with a little momentum here, and you know what I'm going to talk about because I talk about it all the time. And if you still believe that the NBA is a legitimate league after what happened to the Cavaliers against the 76ers, then you are a hopeless case.
That's pretty hopeless.
And I'll tell you what really makes it the worst thing.
What
And
makes it the worst thing?
well, if it were unexpected, that would be one thing. But you knew right off the bat that anything that Embiid touched turns to gold. And then we found out why. And that's the problem with this. Let me make this eminently clear. The Cavaliers were cheated out of a possible victory.
Yep.
The referees were paid to do what they did. In fact, the guy who rightfully called the foul was overruled by people in a booth somewhere in bumfuck Idaho who are league officials who are well aware of what the script is. And let me explain to you two things about the foul. Besides, it was his sixth and he fouled out of the game. Actually, it was his eighth. If you wanted to look at the other times, he would go to the basket and just shove people out of the way. But be that as it may, that's his favorite move, by the way, is the left arm he pushes out and then he fades away. I mean, don't you wonder how Embiid managed to get 5 feet worth of clearance on a fadeaway?
Yeah.
Well, he just pushes off, and nobody's going to stop him from doing it. Nobody will call him for it, except one official. And here's the exact definition of what constitutes an offensive foul. You drop your shoulder and you extend your arm to gain leverage to push the player off of his defensive base. Now, did Mobley sell it? Sure he did.
Yeah.
I mean, but that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to, but if his shoulder is dipped and his arm is extended, that's an offensive foul. All right, let me tell you something else about the foul. Once that happens and the referee calls that an offensive foul, the clock stops, the game stops, the ball changes hands, shot clock is reset, right?
Yep.
Everybody knows this if you know anything about basketball at all. So whether the shot went in or didn't go in makes no difference because there was an offensive foul called.
Yeah.
But for them to put that basket on the board so many minutes later after it happened.
Egregious.
I mean, it isn't egregious. It's against the rules of the sport. And it's obvious that it was designed just to hinder the Cavaliers that much more. And if you remember, the Cavaliers actually did score a couple of baskets in a row after that and cut that lead down.
Yeah.
And had that basket not counted, they would have been like within 4 points of the 76ers. But instead, what we get is an after the fact, well, the ball went in, and it doesn't matter whether the ball goes in, the whistle blew, and they called him for an offensive foul.
Yeah, the play was over. Yeah, the play was over.
Any way you look at it,
anywhere, and it wouldn't have mattered. Should have been the ball could have flown over the backboard and hit somebody in rows out of the crowd, and it wouldn't have mattered.
And I want to say something to Cleveland Cavaliers fans on Twitter. I am not complaining from the perspective of, oh, we're a better team than the 76ers. You're not going to hear me say that because we don't have the roster depth that they do, plain and simple, and we don't have the experience that they have, which is all lousy experience because they never win the big one come the postseason. Be that as it may, they have a lot of players who have experience. We, on the other hand, have a group of young and experienced players and no bench. Yeah. So I'm not going to sit here and, you know, a lot of fans were on Twitter saying, well, that didn't make any difference. And what I would tell you to do is stuff your head in a garbage disposal and let it rip you to shreds because I hate you. Because you refused to listen to something that is not an argumentative statement. It's a statement of fact that the rules of basketball preclude from happening what happened. Yeah. That's just a fact. Now, did the Cavaliers take advantage of it? Well, they tried to. Were they going to win the game? I can't say that with any certainty.
Probably not. But
if that one remains called and Mobley's off the floor for the last 4 minutes and 12 seconds of the game, and we saw what happened when he came out of the game the other times, I'd say that we would be able to make up a 6-point difference. That's me. I think it's really possible. I'm not saying it's probable. I'm saying it's possible. But that only assumes that they wouldn't start making the cheating calls then for James Harden.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Harden would have gotten, favorable calls, or Mobley would have fouled out for some strange reason, or, Lamar Stevens or Darren Stevens or
Harden.
Jacob Stevens.
Harden is a stumble bum who's lost his legs.
Yeah.
He doesn't have any hang time anymore. When he goes into the paint, he barrels through people and barrels into people. And he literally charges away, and he gets every call and goes to the free throw line, and he's a really good free throw shooter.
Correct.
So they could have done that just as easily, given the ball to him over and over again. He would have barreled into people, and they would have put him to the line 10 times in the closing 4 minutes and 12 seconds, and we would have had no chance to win. The outcome of the game was predetermined by the league. You know it. I know it. And for the fans who sit there and say, well, we're not as good as them anyway, you have an inferiority complex, an absolute inferiority complex. And I can't help you with that.
I'll tell you where the Cavs are noticeably better. They're more athletic. I mean, like you say, Embiid and Harden, they look old and fat most of the time, and I think our players are younger and fitter and faster, but they weren't allowed to play the game.
Well, what's hard to do with a guy like Embiid, I mean, he's a monster. The guy's 300 pounds, and standing next to Mobley, he dwarfed Mobley because
I know
Mobley looked like a waif standing next to him. I mean, the guy is huge. He's a mountain of a man, and he's
guys from Africa that hadn't been getting enough food during the Band-Aid, era.
Yeah, he was outweighed. But one thing I'll say, and I'm not taking anything away from Johannes Embiid. I have nothing against him personally. It's not like he's not
he's not a bad person as far as I know.
He's not like Dylan Brooks of the Memphis Grizzlies, who's now shoving cameramen off the side of the court.
I saw that.
Yeah, what a cocksucker! Somebody needs to really go after him and kick him in the balls and just render him absolutely disabled. And my phone is ringing. This is such a from Unavailable. Hey, Mr. Unavailable is calling me.
That's probably the Minnesota Vikings ticket office one.
Yeah, they're trying to get a hold of me still, trying to figure that out. The bottom line is this. It's frustrating as hell when you're trying to do something to get to the end, to hold on to that number 4, seed, and it's obvious that somebody has another idea. And the Nets helped us out by losing, and the New York-based media are going to do whatever they can, and the league is going to do whatever they can to make sure that New York teams will get an edge when it matters the most. You know that. And that's one of the reasons why it really doesn't matter if we're the 4 seed or the 5 seed. I don't really see that the Nets, and we're going to have to play them twice next week, and that's going to say a hell of a lot. If we beat them 1 out of the 2 times in New York, then that's going to be about it. It's going to be bye-bye for the Nets. That'll be just about over for them. I don't see them as being as good a team. The Knicks, I don't see are as good a team as we are, but I will start saying this early. If we are the 4 seed, they're the 5 seed, or they're the 5 seed, and they're the 4, and we're the 5, either way, they are going to get such favorable calls, it'll make your head spin.
Yep.
It is going to piss everybody off, because getting New York into that second round is more important than getting the Cavaliers into the second round. With that said, the Cavaliers really aren't good enough. I think we can beat the Knicks in a straight-up game that's honestly officiated. I think we beat the Knicks. I really do, in a 7-game series. I really believe that. But beyond that, it's like, what's the point? It's you're not going to go any further than that, because the teams that you're looking at the Celtics, you're looking at the 76ers, you're looking at the Bucks. We're not in any way, shape, or form capable of competing with them. We don't have the depth, we don't have the experience, so I'm not going to complain. And Daktar's doing his one man. I'm a Wizards fan thing. And, you've been a Wizards fan for so long. You're loyal. I'll give you that. Not a bad basketball team. They got some, and there's going to be some problems for Cleveland tonight at 7:30. For one thing, you got Bradley Beal playing, and he didn't play the last time these 2 teams played. And second of all, you've got Porzingis without Jared Allen there to bother him. And third of all, Daktar's bringing up Gafford's name. He's a good rebounder, and without our second big tall tower, that's a problem. And you got Kyle Kuzma. If this is a hot shooting night, the Wizards could really give the Cavaliers a hell of a problem. So there is no such thing as an easy game. The Wiz are not going to win every single game, Daktar. You're on acid again. Please stop. And right now, Double P, I'd say it is our year. For me personally, I believe that our base players, it's a great young core. I'm really, really happy with the number of wins that we've gotten to this point. I'd like for the team to finish strongly. We've had a lot of injuries. We've had a lot of guys miss time, and we're still right there in the 4th seed. And and I understand, Daktar, that you would have to win every single game. And then in order to win the championship, you'd have to win a certain number of games too. But we're living on the planet Earth, okay? And I have, again, nothing against the Wizards, but there are a lot of teams that are, the fact that they're 10th and they're in the race will tell you more about the big, vast middle. And earlier in the season, when I was concerned about the Cavaliers, that vast middle is something you have to separate yourself from. There's always going to be a ton of teams who are right around 500.
Yeah.
And they're going to be, and we know we were one of them last year, just, for at the end. They're going to be fighting for one of those play-ins. And there's a lot of teams that are, I say, of the ones right now, the Heat, are there, the best of the bunch, but because they're really solid defensively. But you got to establish yourself as being better than that. The Cavaliers have done that so far, and they got to finish up these last 11 games like they really mean it. And Double P is commenting about the Celtics. No, you're not going to see Giannis hitting wide open threes. What you will be seeing is Giannis just charging into the lane, and he's so quick, so long, that you're going to see our bigs foul out of the game. That's what you're going to see. Giannis is capable of putting the team on his back and carrying them. And if you're totally too wrapped up in Giannis, then yeah, they have guys who can, God only knows if Connaughton starts, if Connaughton starts hitting threes, if Middleton starts hitting threes, team can be bad fucking news. Brook Lopez, it can be a real clusterfuck. They're a solid basketball team, and the Celtics. The thing I don't like about playing the Celtics, they're well coached, and I know that Mazzulla is a guy who came from nowhere, but I think that the foundation was set under the previous head coach, Brad Stevens, and I think that team has an identity of being a really good defensive team. And they also have two really prolific youngish players in Tatum and Brown. And those guys can break your back. And again, if you get too focused on these people, they have other people who can knock down threes. So, there ain't no good one of the bunch, 1, 2, or 3 above us, that we would really have a chance in winning a 7-game series against. And what I'll be watching, Dactar, is a Cleveland Cavalier broadcast, and I don't care about Kispert and his friends. I think the Cavaliers have to try to play up to their highest capacity to beat the Wizards. I don't think that they can sit there and do what they've been doing sometimes, playing, coming out in the first quarter raggedy, or coming out in the third quarter raggedy, and then trying to all come back in the fourth quarter. They have to play 4 solid quarters. They got to play defense. They've got to contest 3-point shots, and they've got to go after loose balls. That's the way the Cleveland Cavaliers win. So that's that. For Cleveland Browns fans, there has been some activity, if you want to call it really activity. So if I'm going to be honest about the Cavaliers and tell you, we don't have a chance to beat any of the 3 teams ahead of us, and if it's the Knicks who were 4th, that they'll be handed the games, just making sure that you're aware of that. The Browns are mediocre. And let me explain to you. I know this is time you're supposed to be really, really, enthusiastic and optimistic. And again, I'll just say they're mediocre. And mediocre is a very broad kind of thing to define.
Yeah.
Mediocre.
Anywhere from 10-7 to 7-10.
That's right, Bronk. That's absolutely that's what a mediocre team is. And it depends if you get a little lucky, if you have a little last second field goal action, if you get a few calls here and there, but they're not good enough to be able to win those kinds of games without either a little help or a little luck. That's a mediocre team. There's a lot of them in the NFL. And I know people are going to say, well, Deshaun Watson is supposed to make us better than mediocre. Well, he did not make the Houston Texans better. You put shit players around any quarterback, and it's so funny that Mr. Rogers is going to New York. Won't you be there? Can't you be there? It's a wonderful day in the neighborhood. Aaron Rodgers going to the Jets, and he's going to discover very quickly that New York is not Green Bay, and the fans are seeing an old version of him. He may believe in himself because he's full of himself, but the fact of the matter is the people in New York will boo him just as quickly as anybody else. and I know what the New York Jets are doing, or what Woody Johnson always does. First of all, he plays with himself incessantly. He's a huge masturbator. The other thing that Woody Johnson consistently does is he just turned the reins over to Aaron Rodgers and has gotten every guy that Aaron Rodgers wants.
Yeah, which makes no sense at all.
It's the weakest way of, and that means your front office doesn't have any say. You wonder why the Jets organization is all fucked up.
It's crazy, man. It's like the time when the Cavs surrounded LeBron with Shaq and D Wade and Derrick Rose and all these other has-beens that they got in.
Well, Double P brings out Thornhill, is trying to recruit Hardman. And again, it's not that Hardman, if you look at the statistics, and again, I'm not going to be sitting here going absolutely ballistic.
I think I'm bigger than Hardman. I mean,
well, it's a different. First of all, he's got some injury problems, and the other thing is from a career stats perspective. I'm pulling that up. In 2019, he had 26 catches, but he averaged 20.7 yards per catch. But remember who was throwing to him and what the circumstances were. All right.
Yeah, he was probably wide open every time he caught the
ball. But in the last 3 years, his production went from 41 in 2020, but at a 13.7 average per catch. Down in 2021, he had 59 receptions, but down to an 11.7. And then last year hurt, and he had 25 for an 11.9. So he settled in at about 11.9, and he's very fast. He ran a 4.31 in his, or 4.33, I believe, in his combine back when in 2019, and he won a race against other people where he actually ran a 4.21, I believe, where they had the fastest guys running against one another.
Yeah,
but this is not a franchise changer, folks.
Yeah, I agree, Double P. I mean,
well, you can't argue with that. I mean, fucking Ironside, Mark, let me wheel to the spot and see if I can get to the first down marker. I mean, anyone is better than Anthony Schwartz. I mean, you can think of any person with a disability and would be better than Anthony Schwartz. So at this point, you take what you get because there's nothing left. There's nobody there who's going to bail the Browns out of their receiver problems.
No, it's the worst crop of wide receivers assembled known to man. I mean, you look at the top 100 prospects on the NFL.com website, and there is nary a wide receiver that you'd want anywhere near your team. I mean, it is terrible.
Well, the good news in this is that Callie Brownson has been moved up to be the assistant wide receiver coach. And I'm sure that's going to make every one of them just that much better.
Yeah.
Even though she's never done that job before. That's a great way to break in. That's a great way to take a social stance on a social issue by giving somebody a job that means nothing. God, I hate that. And if she is good enough to be a wide receivers coach, give her the fucking job. It's the same thing I'm listening to Doris Duke on that ESPN broadcast of the 76ers game, where, I mean, she was like a fucking porn movie fluffer. She's just going down on every single 76er. I mean, even Doc Rivers, muttly looking fuck, I mean, she's sitting there, how great thou art, and all this bullshit. It's like, there has to be. I mean, and what was Doris Duke? Doris Duke was a former
Doris Burke. But anyway, I didn't get a chance to listen to that broadcast. We had BBC commentators from England, and I don't know whether they were actually in Cleveland or whether they were commentating from some booth in London.
They were probably, pip, pip, studio, bring me the tea.
There was a bit of that. But up until 2 minutes left in the first quarter, the audio and video was out of sync, or that the audio that we were hearing was 5 seconds earlier than the video. So you figure that one out. It was fucking bizarre.
Yeah, that's the wonderful world of satellite remote broadcast.
Yeah.
What I'll say is this. I am all in favor of talented women becoming play-by-play and color commentators. But when you have a woman doing the broadcast of the Milwaukee Bucks games, or some of the Milwaukee Bucks games, and you put her on those games and as a color commentator, and the primary announcer is just saying, well, getting back to the game now, because she's not even paying attention. She's just lost. And then you find out that what she does the rest of the time is women's volleyball broadcasts. It's like, I'm a broadcaster, goddammit. This is what my life was. I can't stand it. There are talented women out there. Give them the fucking job. Hand them the full-time color commentary job or a full-time play-by-play job. It was just like morning shows. I always hated it on the radio. It was always, Billy Bob, J Bob, and Suzanne. And the woman was always like,
Exactly. Yeah.
That's all she was allowed to do. Laugh at the guy's jokes.
That's pretty much what NFL.com do with Kay Adams and the other blonde bird they got and the analytics bird that they got.
We found a wonderful morning show host, and she was the primary person in Binghamton, New York, and it was wonderful because she was good at what she did, and she was getting an opportunity. Nobody's for equal opportunity more than I am, but I can't stand it when it's just bullshit. We need help. We need all the wide receiver coaching help, and Chad O'Shea ain't no help. We need somebody who can make these guys the best they can be. And I don't understand why in the fuck a guy like Mike Prefer loses his job when a guy like Chad O'Shea couldn't work with an Anthony Schwartz to make him a little bit better. The bottom line is that's what the receivers coach does. Got to make those guys the best they can be. And if Callie Brownson can do it, give her the job. Because Chad O'Shea doesn't know fuck. And I use the same criteria for him that I use for Prefer. People underachieved. And the receiving corps underachieved. They just, on broken plays, just stopped their patterns. They didn't come back to the quarterback. They were bunched up in the wrong place on the field. Just pathetic. So do I hope we get Hardman? Yeah. At this point, I'll take anybody who's got some speed who can actually catch the football. But I'm going to tell you that Mecole Hardman is not going to be the guy who's going to turn it around for the Browns and their mediocre team. And neither are any of these free agents that we're getting. What we can hope for, if we're fortunate, is that the scheme that Jim Schwartz brings into the defense, and the fact that we have Tomlinson now, we got a couple other defensive tackles who are one's trying to resurrect their career because he's been a bust. And can you believe we were talking to Mac Wilson a second time?
What?
Oh yeah, You didn't know about that?
No, I didn't know about that.
But he went somewhere else. Thank God he went someplace else. And I think he went to the Texans. That would be logical.
Bad news.
Yeah. But the Browns actually brought him in to have a long talk with him.
Wow.
And again, the reason is that he's a straight line player, and maybe they felt that, with the new defensive system that he could be of some help. But, when you're that low down on the free agency priority list and you're not going to get the kind of help that's going to really move the dial for you.
Wow.
That's just the way it is. The Browns are mediocre, and they're going to continue to be mediocre. What you want to see is if they can be in close games, if we can manage to do something to get points on the board, to work with Cade York and kick those game-winning field goals and give them a chance actually to do it. I know that Kevin Stefanski has a stiffy because they brought in Deshaun Watson's former tight end, and people are like, well, what good does that do us? Fucking Stefanski and his tight ends. And the reason is because Harrison Bryant was a bust, okay?
Yep.
Harrison Bryant couldn't get any separation. He was great playing for wherever the fuck he was in Boise State or wherever the fuck he was, but he not at the pro level, and he consistently would run short of the first down marker. And there was no yards after catch. He just dissolved into a big nothing. And the guy we picked up, who used to play with Deshaun Watson, is a guy who's 6'4", and it's really just a simple statistical thing. He's taller. He's going to be more of a red zone kind of target. The two tight ends, and the fact is, this guy caught more touchdown passes last year, and it was for the Texans without Deshaun Watson, that either of our tight ends did.
Wow.
Yeah. So for all the talk about, oh, gosh, David Njoku, and David Njoku saying, you know something? I've got my eyes on Ozzie Newsome. And it's like you should, so you can learn how to play the position. But
is he not the most overrated guy that has been on the Browns for the past 5 years? I mean,
talent. There are guys... Bradley Zimmer for the Cleveland Guardians.
I love Bradley Zimmer.
Bradley Zimmer's a guy, talent. Except he had a long fucking swing that didn't translate into the major leagues, and he struck out far too much. And by cutting his swing down, it took away the one thing that made him interesting, and that was that he had power. So, talent, there's lots of people who are talented. They wouldn't be this far along if they weren't talented. But, David Njoku, he's a freak, but he's a freak with less than average hands. And as a wide receiver or a tight end, if you're looking to be a guy who's a threat in the red zone, you better have fucking pine tar on those hands. So, this guy, at least, and I think his name is Akins or Atkins?
Jordan Akins, and I'm Akins, and I'm looking at him right now.
Yeah, and this is a guy who's a big body and probably will bring a big
30 years old.
Yeah, and he'll block, and he'll also give him a big frame. And you know how Stefanski is. He wants 3 tight ends, and so it will go. Mediocrity defined. Somebody said that he isn't a great blocker. That may well be the case. I don't know. I would tend to believe that he's a guy they're going to put in a red zone situation because Stefanski just really loves to have multiple tight ends when the field's compacted and then drop back and just throw lob passes and fades that never are complete in the end zone.
Yeah, he had 5 touchdowns last year on 37 receptions for 495 yards. He played for 5 years for the Texans, had 151 receptions, which to my mind makes out to be 30 receptions a year. So he's going to get 2 catches per game.
Yeah, and and here's the other thing. He actually got cut last year. The reason he ended up back with the Texans is that he was cut, and I don't remember what team it was who cut him. But, and he actually ended up having his best year with the Texans, last year. So, again,
so is he going to beat out Farrell Brown for the
yeah, I mean, but Harrison Bryant's gone. What it amounts to is like bye-bye. But Nicole Hardman and Akins and people of that ilk are not going to turn things around for a mediocre team. You just need better talent, and that's the way it. And the fact is, Nicole Hardman, he responded to a tweet from Thornhill, but there's no evidence that he has any interest at all in playing for the Cleveland Browns.
Anything at all, does it?
No.
The only free agent that looks serviceable is that Tomlinson from the Vikings, but then we gave him 4 years. I mean, is he going to be good for 4 years?
And the reality is
no.
And again, this guy came out of Alabama, and he was the 55th overall pick in 2017. He spent 4 years with the Giants, and then he signed a deal with Minnesota, where he played the last 2 seasons. 6'3", 317 pounds, space eater. And again, that's what this is all about, is trying to control the line of scrimmage, which the Browns have been unable to do anytime recently. He ranked number 16 among qualifying tackles by PFF in 2022, recorded 42 tackles, 2.5 sacks, and 10 quarterback hits, and forced a fumble last year.
Good.
Right? He was ranked as the 3rd best interior lineman in free agency, behind, of course, Javon Hargrave and Darren Payne, and those guys got paid mega bucks, $84 million and $90 million. So $57 million for Tomlinson, and that's more in keeping with what the Browns do.
Yep.
The Browns just like to...
the Browns sign a lot like the Guardians do and the Dolans. They try to get value value in quotation mark free agents. Yeah.
So, and Taven Brown went away. And Taven Brown didn't do a damn thing for the Cleveland Browns. Chase Winovich did nothing. We're going to see what Perion Winfrey and his big mouth can do playing with a hard-nosed coach. We're going to find that out. And we're going to find out if Tommy Togiai really even belongs in the NFL. This is a prove-it kind of situation in preseason. Is going to be dramatically important for people, and who really steps up and plays that scheme better. And that's going to be that. So, I mean, but ordinary is ordinary, And, while we're talking about, David Njoku and his, ridiculous, I'm looking at those Ozzie Newsome records for the Browns, and I'm going, I don't know what the hell, you're on drugs. Equally on drugs is the amazing Joe Burrow. And, he's doing a little charity thing for his foundation that saves him taxes, It's a tax dodge. And so he brought in Joe Montana, and they're doing something called they're fighting food insecurity. And I don't know, the 2 quarterbacks, they were talking on the Today Show, and one of them was Al Roker, who knows all about food insecurity, I guess. I'm sorry.
He's still alive, didn't he have serious health problems?
He had some problems. Yeah, he's still with us. That's good. Al Roker, the weatherman. But what he said was just foolishness. To be around a guy like Joe Montana, I think is exciting for me because he's had all the success in the world that I plan on and want to have in my progression. And it's like, you know.
Oh, you don't need to say that out loud. You could think that maybe, but you don't
Yeah.
say it out loud.
No, I mean, that's just stupidity. Just stupidity. And Christopher Milton, what's the chance of the Browns making it to the Super Bowl if they have tickets?
Yeah.
There's a good opportunity that a number of them will be
games
there.
ever played in Cleveland, and they have a chance of being there.
Yeah, you know, but no, I'd say the Browns are nowhere in the Super Bowl hunt. Not at all.
Yeah, I definitely think we're a 10-7 or 7-10 team. That's our range. And we haven't done anything to break out of that or fall below that.
No. And you can point at the quarterback, you can point at any number of things, but if they're just going to be a protect the ball first kind of offense, dump the ball off and do all of that shit, that's exactly what they're going to be. And I don't see that changing in my lifetime. I don't see the team, you know, especially when you see the Bengals are younger and better and, you know, somebody else takes over and then we're just waiting for the Steelers to reload and for the Ravens to reload, right? And we just never seem to get anything going. So Browns are, you know, and it's, for the Browns, it's good enough being mediocre because they've been so terrible in the not so distant past that, you know, I just thought it's amazing, you know, how the world changes in professional sports and how somebody like Baker Mayfield, you know, is suddenly going to Tampa Bay. And it's like, I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. I just wouldn't do it. I mean, somebody has to follow Tom Brady. Somebody has to, but it's a thankless job. And just the fact that Jacoby Brissett will be earning more money this year than Baker Mayfield. What does that tell you? I mean, it's just amazing how, and Sam Darnold is just, you know, still holding on. And, you know, the guys who were top picks in that draft, and
that
they're
was a
just
terrible draft as it turns out. I mean, Josh Allen seems like he's even him, I'm not fully convinced with him. So,
well, I think that he's proven himself in many regards. He's way better than anybody thought coming out of Wyoming because he was an inaccurate college quarterback, and he is not proven to be inaccurate at the NFL level. He was like a 54% college passer.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's not real good. So, you know, and that's exactly right, Double P. You know, Todd Bowles is not the guy you want standing beside you. You know, if you want to reestablish any kind of offensive domination, you know, and you know, it's true. Joe Burrow is arrogant, and Baker Mayfield was arrogant, but Baker Mayfield was chip on his shoulder arrogant.
Yeah.
And Joe Burrow is entitled and encouraged by the media entitled. And until he gets a title, he should not feel entitled.
Well, the thing is, Burrow being an Ohio boy gets a lot of, free passes from the.
Is he
Ohio
really an Ohio guy, or is he somewhere stuck in the corner of a state closer to fucking West Virginia And the reason that he knows about food insecurity is the people who didn't know how to read and write who lived miles from him. I don't
I
know.
just set you up on that one, didn't I?
Seriously. I never looked at Joe Burrow as an Ohio guy. And he brings that up in Cincinnati all the time. And there's enough hillbillies close behind there that, come over from Kentucky that maybe he's one of their guys. But I never really looked at him. It wasn't like Bernie Kosar,
Yeah. No, there is a difference. You are
He's
right.
a Boardman guy, Youngstown guy, and he embodied that whole Northeast Ohio. I grew up when the steel mills were operating kind of guys.
I thought you were going to go after me with Ben Roethlisberger was an Ohio guy too. So
that's and something. And I was a Miami of Ohio graduate.
Yeah.
No, I didn't graduate. I forgot. I didn't graduate from Miami of Ohio.
You never went to class. You paid to go there, but you didn't show up.
That's basically right. I was doing radio. Oh, my mother, God rest her soul. She would be doing flips and turns in her grave if she knew I was joking about this.
I'll be over it by now.
No, Jewish mothers are never over it, man.
Wow.
That's the rule of thumb. But no, Roethlisberger was a guy who, he was something at Miami of Ohio, and he went to Pittsburgh so quick, and he fit in so perfectly there because, he could just slip right in there and just drag a woman into a men's room and, really fit in well there.
Yeah.
And he became really entitled now, didn't he?
Oh, jeez.
And at the end of his career, he became a fucking pussy. That was the other thing I really loved about Ben Roethlisberger. It's one thing when you're a league favorite and you got really good players around you, but when you get older like that and you don't even have the heart to dive after a ball in a playoff game, fuck him.
Yeah. Oh, which just brings up to another really point is that Stefanski still hasn't won a playoff game yet.
Yeah, that's technically true.
He has not won a playoff game.
Christopher, thank you for asking. My father continues in rehab, and I was with him 2 days ago, and I try to go there every day. It's just hard. It's hard emotionally, and he's getting a lot of speech and occupational therapy. What I will say is that he has aphasia, which is part of when you've had a major stroke like he did. And it interferes with his ability to speak and communicate. But he's understanding speech better than he is constructing speech. So there have been some positive things going on with this. And at 92 years old, I'm proud of him because he's a fighter. And by God, he's doing everything that a 92-year-old man could possibly do. If I end up anywhere near as tough as that guy, he's just he's one in a million that way. That would, honest to God, when I tell you this, and I'm not saying this to say my dad's bigger than your dad or anything like that, but seriously, that the strength of that stroke would have killed any 92-year-old. I don't know how he survived, and I don't know how he has managed. I mean, he was right side affected. The hemorrhage in his brain was here, the left side, and that paralyzed the right side of his body.
Yeah.
And I go into his room, and he's eating with his right hand. I mean, it's like, it's amazing to watch what he's able to do. It's like, how in the hell are you doing that? So it's the brain is such a hard to understand thing. And I just want the world to know that I love my father tremendously, and I hope that he can continue fighting. And that's the best the best thing I can say is I can honestly say that he has not given up.
Yeah.
And that's, to me, the most important thing. So at any rate, I'm finished with what I'm to do today. But we got 7:30 basketball game. Let's hope that the Cavaliers get the job done. Looking, I'll do the last check on NBA and standings here, so that right now, if you look at where the Cavs are, there's 10 games left in the season for them.
Yeah.
And I like to break it down. They're 2.5 games ahead of the Knicks. The Knicks don't play tonight. They play tomorrow. They're 4 games ahead of the Brooklyn Nets, and they're 5.5 games ahead of the Heat. Now, if the Cavaliers in their last 10 games of the season, if they can win 6 and lose 4, you could do the math.
Yeah, it's like an E number, and
the Knicks, in order to catch them, and of course we have a game against the Knicks. If the Cavaliers can beat the Knicks, then the problem for the Cavaliers, and from a scheduling perspective, I'm just looking at their full schedule because who can remember this? I know a lot of the teams that we're playing. We've got to go to Brooklyn back-to-backs on Tuesday and Thursday of next week. And that is what's going to tell the tale about Brooklyn. If Cleveland wins one of those games, Brooklyn is not going to catch us in any way. And we have a game, versus New York, which means the Knicks are coming to us. And we could really put a damper on them. And the Knicks, for their part, who I think are the team who would be the most dangerous at this point, because let's be honest, I think that the Nets are 7-11 in their last 18 games, and that's since the trade went down and that they lost their players. So the full schedule on the Knicks, it isn't like the Knicks have a hard schedule, folks. They're playing, at home against Denver, and Denver is in a slump right now, having lost a couple in a row. Then they're at home against the Timberwolves, who are not a very good team. They're at Miami. That could be a problem for the Knicks. Then they're at Orlando, which I don't think scares anybody. Then they're playing Houston, which doesn't scare anybody. Then they're at home against Miami. So they have 2 against Miami, and then their next game is in Cleveland. Then they're playing out the rest of the year, home versus Washington, at Indiana, at New Orleans, who has nothing really, and against the Pacers again. So really for the Knicks, it's going to come down to 2 games against Miami, 1 game against Cleveland. And and the same thing for the Nets. It's going to come down to 2 games against Cleveland. And if they lose even one of them, it's really going to stymie them. So that's basically what I know about that. Bronk, thanks for joining me. I really do appreciate it. And I want to make sure I'm doing this correctly.
I'm just loving the 4-hour time difference. So I could stay up and watch these games,
Yeah, I don't know why this is not working for me right now. There we go. All right. So I want to thank everybody in the chat room for jumping in and helping out. Your comments are always read and welcomed. And Bronk, thanks for being here with me. And I'll see everybody again on Monday, and we'll be talking about just how the Cavs are doing. Go Cavs is right, Ron Shane. Everybody enjoy the game tonight, and I'll see you Monday. Until then, hasta la vista, Pastorheads. Good night.